Welcome to Revenza Tales, where tales of betrayal and hard-fought comebacks set your soul ablaze. Smash subscribe, ring the bell, and tell friends who battle for their truth. What do you do when 10 years of love disintegrates in a night to find a stranger in your house? My name's Arya Jones, and I never imagined one moment could destroy all I'd fought for. It was a still evening in our apartment in Seattle, the city's thrum dampened by rain-soaked windows. I pushed a personalized photograph album along the dinner table to Charles, my husband of a decade. My hands shook with excitement, my grin huge. "Happy anniversary," I whispered, waiting for a flicker of happiness. Charles grunted, scarcely looking at the album before he discarded it on the table like garbage mail. "Seriously, Arya?" His tone was dripping with contempt. "What is this? A collection of old pictures pasted together? This is the best you can do?" My heart constricted, air sticking in my throat. Every sentence pierced the weeks I'd spent constructing memories. Our first date to Pike Place Market, the rain-soaked camping trip we'd laughed until sunrise, the day we moved into this apartment. I'd put my heart into each page, praying that it would remind him of us. "I figured you'd want something significant," I said, voice more even than I was. "It's us, Charles. Everything we've constructed. My parents' arguments when I grew up taught me to maintain the peace, to please others, even when it stung. I'd taken that with me into our marriage, always being the wife Charles wished to see." He rolled his eyes, reclining. "Constructed, Arya? This sentimental nonsense is unnecessary. You're always so sensitive, it's draining." His words echoed the doubts I'd buried since childhood, watching my mom beg my dad to care. I clenched my hands under the table, fighting the urge to shrink. I'd spent years designing logos and campaigns, channeling creativity into our life. But Charles saw it as lesser than his flashy tech sales career. Tonight, I'd hoped he'd see me. Instead, his dismissal slammed a door shut. "Charles, I did this for us," I told him, voice shaking. "For our future." His sneer meant he wasn't listening. The album was more than a gift. It was my final try to cling to something being taken away. Charles got up, raking his hand through his hair, face contorted in frustration. "You don't understand, do you, Arya?" he said, tone bitter enough to cut the silence. "This is no longer working. You're no longer working." My gut twisted, as if stumbling in the dark. "What are you saying?" I said, though I knew. He folded his arms, self-satisfaction in his grin. "I'm leaving you, Arya. I've found someone else, Mary. She's 23, alive, knows how to live, not exist like you." The name Mary stung like a slap. I'd heard him say it, a new employee at his company, always with a laugh or a too-late anecdote. This was betrayal wrapped in his typical arrogance. "You're abandoning me?" I repeated, voice trembling but firm. "After all I've done for us?" He laughed, cold and condescending. "Everything? You mean hanging around me with your little projects? I require someone who contributes something real, not brings me down with emotional baggage." Every word sliced into my fear I wasn't enough. I'd seen my mom wilt under my dad's criticism, vowing I'd never do that to anyone. But here I was, Charles echoing those hurts. I'd dimmed my light for years, taking freelance work to fund his career, packing up and moving to Seattle for his career, always putting his aspirations above mine. We were a team, I'd believed, but I was just a shadow to him. "So this is how you tell me?" I whispered, voice low. "By discarding 10 years like they mean nothing?" He shrugged, unaffected. "You're too much, Arya. Always have been." The photo album was scattered, Seattle rain pattering against the windows like a pulse. But under pain, a spark of determination flared. I turned to Charles, his cocky smile searing me, and something broke. I laughed, a genuine runaway laugh ringing through our apartment. Not bitter, but clean, born of clarity cutting through years of uncertainty. Charles's eyes flashed. "What is so funny?" he growled, assurance faltering. I got up, retrieving the album he'd flung aside. "You have no idea what you're discarding." I turned to the back, brushing a secret pocket that I'd stitched in. With a steadiness I didn't know I had, I drew out a creased deed. "This," I held up, "is the deed to a lake house on Lake Chelan. I purchased it for us, Charles, a surprise anniversary gift." His jaw fell, smugness evaporating as he gazed at the paper. "You bought a house?" he stuttered, cracking voice. I'd worked years saving, grabbing extra freelance jobs, envisioning peaceful weekends by the lake, just the two of us. I'd envisioned it as our do-over, where we could rebuild what we lost. Now, it belonged to me. I pocketed the deed, smile cutting. Looks like Mary won't be drinking wine by the lake, will she? Charles's face contorted. Shock, panic, regret crashing. Since when do you make decisions like that? He demanded, reaching for power. I cocked my head, pulse racing with force. Because I knew I couldn't count on you to care about what happens next, Charles. I thought we shared the same goals. My error. He parted his lips, but nothing emerged. For the first time, he saw me, not the wife who'd subsided to his command, but the woman who'd constructed something remarkable without his approval. You're making a mistake, he told me, voice unconvincing. I shook my head. No, Charles, you made yours. I turned, heading toward the bedroom, the deed in my handbag a lifeline to a future I'd seize. I drifted through our apartment, a ghost, filling a duffel with clothes and necessities. Charles's words resonated, his rejection of the album, his cutting remarks about Mary. They all hurt, but as I zipped up the bag, something shifted. I paused by the dresser, eyes catching our wedding photo, young, hopeful, under Portland's cherry blossoms. I'd chased that version of us, molding myself into the wife Charles wanted. Quiet, supportive, invisible. That Arya was gone. I tucked the photo into the bag, not for sentiment, but as a reminder. I wasn't running from the past. I was choosing to leave it behind. Outside, Seattle's neon lights reflected on wet streets, the Space Needle a distant silhouette. I stood in the rain, duffel on my shoulder, feeling the rhythm of the city. The lake house deed in my wallet was worth more than the sale. It was evidence I'd created something without him. I'd spent years afraid that I wasn't enough, but that was dissolving. I was Arya Jones, and I was prepared to fight for the life I deserved. Charles's footsteps marched the living room, his grumbled excuses echoing through the walls. I didn't care. For the first time, his mess was not my responsibility. I tossed my duffel onto my shoulder, walking by him without looking. You're really splitting, he bit out, tone a blend of incredulity and annoyance. You're acting, Arya. I turned in the doorway, meeting his gaze. His arms were folded across his chest, jaw clenched, but I saw the hesitation flash through his eyes. Dramatic? I said, voice steady. No, Charles, I'm finished being the joke in your tale. I went out into the night air of Seattle, cool on my skin, city lights shining off wet roads. As I pulled away from there, tears shrouded the skyline, but they were not tears of sorrow, they were relief, pure and untainted. I went to Rachel's place in Capitol Hill, her small bungalow a refuge I never knew I needed. I'd grown up learning to conceal pain, maintaining peace at any price. Tonight, I did not want to conceal. I wanted to be noticed. Rachel stood in the doorway, dark eyes traveling across my face, reading all of it at once. What did he do? She asked, her voice low but hard. I forced a small smile. May I come in? My heart was calm in spite of the hurt. This was my first step toward something different. Rachel welcomed me into her bungalow, the golden light of her kitchen enveloping me like a hug. Kitchen or couch? She inquired, taking down a bottle of Pinot Noir. Kitchen, I replied, voice calmer than anticipated. We sat at her oak table, where secrets were spilled and hearts were healed. Rachel filled 2 glasses, never taking her eyes off me. Spill, she invited, reclining back in concern and willingness to battle on my behalf. I breathed deeply, words spilling over. The photo album, Charles's harsh dismissal, his revelation about Mary, the Lake Chelan house deed. My voice broke on his words. You're not working anymore. But I forged ahead, the weight of the night spilling out. Rachel's jaw dropped at the lake house. You bought a house on Lake Chelan, and he didn't know? She exclaimed, voice rising in indignation. And he calls you meaningless? That man has nerve. I swirled wine, a bitter smile pulling at my lips. That's Charles. Always confident I'd just accept. Rachel shook her head, dark hair sparkling with light. She'd fought through her own divorce, brought up her son alone, and knew the work of rebuilding. But you didn't accept it, she said, smiling. You walked out with that deed, left him speechless. That's power, Arya. Her words ignited a flame within me. I'd spent years shrinking, keeping the peace like I did for my parents' arguments. But with Rachel, I felt noticed, not as Charles's wife, but as Arya, who dared to dream big. "What now?" she asked, her hand over mine. I shrugged, the future a blank page. "I've spent so long trying to make him happy. I forgot what I want." She squeezed my hand. "You'll figure it out. Tonight, you stay here, no arguments." I smiled, her friendship anchoring me, allowing me to breathe for the first time in years. The next morning, my phone rang on Rachel's coffee table. "Charles, 8 missed calls, a dozen texts. Where are you?" "This is childish, Arya. We have to talk." Each one of them a frantic reach for control. Last night, he'd left without a qualm. Now he was falling apart. Rachel looked over my shoulder, taking a sip of coffee. "Let me guess, Charles is losing it." I nodded, a sour laugh escaping. "He's not accustomed to me telling him no." I ignored his texts, taking the day with Rachel, doing errands up and down Seattle's busy streets. The normalcy was welcome, picking up groceries, giggling over her son's soccer tales. But by nightfall, I was back at our apartment, Charles's car in the driveway. My heart pounding, but I parked in the street, bracing myself. Within, he paced the living room, his face a combination of anger and desperation. "You finally arrived," he growled. "I live here," I replied calmly, putting my purse down on the counter. "What are you doing here?" He moderated his tone, a strategy one was all too familiar with. "This has gotten out of control, Arya. We need to discuss it." I crossed my arms, resting against the counter. "Out of hand? You mean because I didn't plea with you to remain after you picked Mary?" His face hardened. I noticed the suave, coercive Charles I'd loved. But I wasn't that girl anymore. "Look, I screwed up," he said, raking a hand through his hair. "I wasn't thinking. We can make things right." I laughed, bitter and liberating. "Make things right, Charles? You spent years brushing me off, taking me for granted. This is not a fix-it job. You made your decision." His eyes darted with panic, but I was anchored in last night's courage. "You're making too big a deal out of this," he attempted to say, but I stopped him. "No, you can't rewrite this chapter." I clutched my bag, heading up the stairs, leaving him with words that came out hollow. I wasn't walking away. I was standing firm. The following day, I acted purposefully, packing Charles's belongings, clothes, books, gadgets, into boxes, piling them by the front door of the apartment. Each object removed a layer of the life I'd held onto, where I'd attempted to be enough for him. By afternoon, I phoned a locksmith. The sound of the new deadbolt click was a small triumph. I wasn't closing a door. I was taking back my home. When Charles showed up that night, his swagger was back, as if he could talk his way in. I greeted him on the porch, where I was standing with a folder containing my lawyer's contact number. His eyes darted to the suitcase. "What's this?" he demanded, voice cutting. "Your stuff," I replied, nodding towards the heap. "And this is my lawyer's number. You'll be hearing from her soon." His expression stiffened, but I didn't budge, heart steady despite the tempest in his eyes. "You're being absurd, Arya. You can't do this on your own, you need me." His final attempt at a jab, aimed at keeping me in my place. I'd grown up mediating my parents' quarrels, ever the peacekeeper, but I was finished. "We'll see about that," I retorted, voice unflinching. "Now leave my porch." He gazed, confidence breaking like fragile ice. For all those years, I'd let his charm and criticism shape me. Not anymore. I'd saved for that Lake Chelan home, constructed a dream he couldn't perceive, and now I was constructing a life without him. He scooped up his bag, grumbling, striding away into Seattle's gloaming, the Space Needle a distant shadow. I entered, the apartment's stillness a guarantee of something mine. 2 weeks passed and my phone rang while sketching at Rachel's kitchen table, a fresh design project emerging. Charles's name flashed, almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want?" I replied, tone icy. His voice was strained, frayed. "It's Mary, she's gone." I relaxed back, a flash of satisfaction burning. "She laughed at me," he growled, words tumbling. "Called me weak, said I wasted the best thing I had. You, the lake house, all of it." I held on to the phone, Seattle's rain pattering the window, echoing my heartbeat. Mary saw through him just as I did. I'd kept my light low for years, But the deed to the lake house told me I could build without him. I began making plans, calling my attorney, getting my money in order, safeguarding my freelance clients. Rachel assisted, introducing me to a friend who'd been through divorce. "You're not alone, Arya," she said, refilling the wine. "You've got the deed, your talent, us. Charles can't get that." Every step, packing up his belongings, replacing the locks, was a stone in my new foundation. Charles's call confirmed it. He was unraveling, but I was rising. I wasn't just surviving his betrayal. I was crafting a comeback he'd never see coming. "She couldn't believe I let it all slip away," Charles said, his voice frayed over the phone. I bit my lip, fighting a smile. The man who'd called my efforts pointless was tasting his own medicine. "And now you're calling me?" I asked, voice steady. As a child, I'd been taught to conceal anger, swallow pain. But this was different, this was justice. "I made a mistake, Arya," he pleaded, desperation seeping in. "Can we just speak, please?" His charm, the kind that bound me for so long, was present. But I wasn't that girl any longer. "No, Charles," I replied, heart firm. "You made your choice. Live with it." I hung up before he could reply. Silence closing in around me like a triumph. Mary had seen through him as had I. His world was falling apart. Mine was just starting. I leaned over my drawing at Rachel's kitchen table, lines flowing more freely. Rachel entered, catching sight of my smile. "What's making you smile?" she asked, coffee mug in hand. I explained about Charles's call. She erupted in laughter. "Karma's quick these days," she said, holding up her mug. I nodded. Years of uncertainty vanishing. Charles's fall wasn't my happiness. My liberation was. I wasn't looking back, only forward, to a life built one bold stroke at a time. The divorce papers were signed, a final pen stroke cutting Charles from my life. I moved into the Lake Chelan house, its cedar walls and wide windows framing a shimmering lake. Seattle's buzz faded, replaced by the quiet ripple of water and whispering pines. I'd bought this place dreaming of a future with Charles. Now, it was my refuge, a place to find again the Arya beneath the criticism. I plunged into freelance design, accepting clients who appreciated my skills. Logos for neighborhood startups, branding for a vineyard on the lake. Every project restored the confidence Charles had eroded. I resumed painting, a college passion shelved when he called it frivolous. The deep blues of the lake and blistering sunsets spilled onto my canvas, every brushstroke a defiance of his words telling me I wasn't enough. Rachel came over frequently, her laughter echoing through the house. "This is you," she said one weekend, sprawling across the couch with wine. "It's got your heart." She was right. I had spent my life shrinking myself to keep harmony at home. Here I stretched out, able to fill the room with my hopes. I joined an art group in the neighborhood, befriended people who didn't know shy Arya, relying on Rachel's ferocious faith in me. One night, drawing the horizon of the lake on my porch, I understood I wasn't merely surviving. I was living. The house was not only a reminder of loss, it was evidence of what I'd constructed. Charles's shadow vanished, and in its place stood a life I was proud to call my own, built on my conditions. 6 months after I'd walked away, I stood on my deck, the lake glimmering under an orange-pink sunset. I'd started Jones Designs, my own studio, and work poured in. Clients who adored my vision, projects that thrilled me. An email came, in an invitation to present at a Seattle design conference on my journey as an entrepreneur. Fear struck first. Charles had laughed at my stammering in words. But I pushed it away. My tale, and I was prepared to tell it. Getting ready for the keynote was intense, but Rachel brought me back down to earth. "Tell it raw," she said. "The heartbreak, the grind, everything." Conference day, backstage at a downtown Seattle theater, my heart raced. But when I got on stage, words came out. "My name is Arya Jones," I started. "A year ago, I was bound by someone else's definitions. Today, I'm here because I chose me. I told you everything. The album, Charles's betrayal, the lake house, how Jones Designs came from the ashes of a life I'd left behind." The crowd leaned forward, their heads nodding, some wiping away tears. My words counted. Later, a woman came up to me, eyes shining. "Your story gave me hope," she said. "It's never too late to begin again." Her words lingered as I drove home to Lake Chelan, the road twisting through pines. In the lake house, I sat on the deck, sketching by starlight. Charles was a memory, his texts erased, his voice stilled. I didn't require his seal of approval, or anyone's. I'd created a life I adored, one bold step at a time. In Seattle back home, there were whispers. Charles's tech life imploded after Mary left. His charm fell flat with new recruits who called his bluff. He'd attempted to sell a startup, relying on our previous lifestyle, saying he'd influenced my designs. It failed. Customers demanded authenticity, not his insincere bravado. Rachel messaged me reports. He's couchsurfing, Arya. No one buys his routine anymore. I didn't rub it in. His downfall wasn't my triumph. My triumph was this house, my studio, the canvas drying by the window. Every morning, I'd stroll the lakeshore, the calm water mirroring mine. Local art galleries asked to display my work. A winery hired me to paint a mural. I wasn't the woman Charles discarded. I was Arya Jones, designer, painter, survivor. Sketching on my deck, I thought of the path. Charles's betrayal, the rejection of the album, the act that reshaped everything. I'd feared I wasn't enough, but I'd forged a life that testified otherwise. The lesson is, don't let somebody else's fear define you. Choose yourself, and create a life that glows. Thanks for watching Revenza Tales, where tales of resilience and victory become real. Like this video, share your comeback stories, and subscribe for more legendary tales. Share with friends who need courage, and I'll see you by the lake of your own.